Hi Karen.
Hi, Nayanthara. The world's most expensive currency? Do you believe that?
Hun.
Can you guess which currency it is?
Yeah, everyone know that. That is US dollar.
No, that is wrong answer. Okay, let's go the video.
The world's most expensive currency, Kuwait, is now going through an economic crisis that started with the COVID-19 pandemic. When the oil price crashed, the oil price remained low for a significant amount of time. Kuwait spends a lot of money on the welfare of its citizens. In Kuwait, people get free health care, free education, cheap electricity, cheap gasoline, and several benefits and subsidies in addition to these. We have to look into the history of Kuwait. You might be shocked to know, friends, that 70-80 years ago, the currency used in Kuwait was issued by the Indian government. You heard it right. The Reserve Bank of India used to print Kuwait's currency at the time, and the currency was named Gulf rupee. It was quite similar to the Indian rupees. It looked like this, and on the note, you can see that government on India is written the numbering in the Indian rupee, and the Gulf rupee differed only by a letter. The numbers of the Gulf rupee used to start was a Z. The speciality of the Gulf rupee was that it could not be used in India. It was used in foreign only. The next question to arise here is that, why did Kuwait need to use a currency that was issued by the Indian government? The answer to this is hidden in history. For almost 200 years, from 1763 till 1961, the British had control over the Persian Gulf area. In this area lied the country Kuwait. Kuwait was not totally under the control of the British Empire. Throughout the year, there were varying degrees of control over Kuwait. Here the British Indian government saw that the economic of Kuwait was quite small. They did not see the need to have currency for it. It was much easier to use the same currency that was being used in India. So the initial decision was of the British Indian government to use the same currency. But in 1947, when India got independence, India saw this practice and permitted that Kuwait to continue using this Indian rupee. Till this point, the exact same Indian rupee was being used in India and Kuwait. Remember, this was the time the Kuwait's economic was small, because of the oil boom had not happened yet. Even though oil was discovered in Kuwait in the late 1930s. But because of the World War II, Kuwait could not sell much oil to the rest of the world. This started happening in 1960s. But some years after India's independence, India faced a problem of gold trafficking. Large-scale gold trafficking was a dress of art in the Gulf area. The smuggler would sell the gold in India. They got Indian rupee in exchange. They would then take the Indian rupees into the Gulf countries to get it exchanged into the foreign currencies. The Indian economic had to suffer huge loss because of this reason. In 1959, the Indian government decided to introduce a different currency for the Gulf areas, called the Gulf rupee. It could be converted with the Indian rupee in a 1:1 ratio. But the Gulf rupee would not be allowed to be used in India. With this, smuggling could be controlled to quite an extent. After this 1961, Kuwait got independence from this British. And in 1963, Kuwait becomes the first Arab country to conduct its parliamentary elections and to create a constitution. 1970s it progressed so well that Kuwait became the most developed country in the area. In fact, in terms of press freedom as well, Kuwait becomes one of the top countries at that time. Once, Kuwait was known for its liberal values. The situation isn't really bad now. Even now the Press Freedom Index ranking of Kuwait is much better than India, that is today in Kuwait. Journalists have more freedom to speak than compared to India. Anyway, coming back to the original topic of currency. In the early 1960s, Kuwaiti dinar introduced by the new Kuwaiti government, and it's priced at 13.33 equals 1 KD. By 1966 Gulf rupees remains in circulation, but after that the Indian government had to devalue the Indian rupee for several reasons. Why India had to devalue the Indian rupee? Because of this devaluation, these Gulf countries are affected, and they are forced to create their currencies. Oman, Qatar, UAE, all these countries create their own currencies after this. In 1975, the exchange rate of the Kuwaiti dinar is fixed to a basket of currencies. What it means to fix the exchange rate. Basically, there are three types of exchange rate: fixed exchange rate, floating exchange rate, and mixed exchange rate. Fixed means that you fix the exchange rate of your currency with same other currency, and based on that currency value, the value of your currency fluctuates. The most famous fixed rate system is the gold standard. The floating exchange rate means that with the supply and the demand in the market, the value of the currency will fluctuate. It will float, and the mixed is the combination of the two. The Indian rupees also had fixed exchange rate till the 1990s. Only after the liberalization of the economic happened in India, the Indian rupees were brought under the floating exchange rate. Today most of the currencies of the world are on floating exchange rate, or the mixed exchange rate, with the exceptions of the currencies of the Gulf countries, like the Kuwaiti dinar, that is still working on a fixed exchange rate. It is not fixed to a single currency. Instead, it is fixed with a basket of currencies. There is a basket of currencies with like 30% $20 pounds. Different currencies in different proportion, and their combined ratio is the one fixed to the Kuwaiti dinar. Obviously, the next question to arise is that, why has the exchange rate of its currency even today? And why has not India kept it fixed? And why India put its currency on the floating exchange rate? And are the pros and cons to it? Fixing one currency or pegging it. It's also known as peg. The downside is that you have to depend on other currencies. Regarding the economic of your country, if you peg your currencies to the US dollar, then if the US dollar crashed tomorrow, if the US's economic falls, then the economic of your country will also fall, because of your currency is based on the US dollar. To avoid this to a large extent, Kuwait has pegs its currencies with a basket of currencies, instead of pegging it with the US dollar only. But, now the second problem is that when you peg your currency, then you have to maintain that peg. And to maintain that, you need a sufficient supply of foreign exchange reserve in your country. What does maintaining means? Look for any currency to bear the changes in the demand and supply in the market is unavoidable, irrespective of whether you are on a floating exchange rate or fixed. The only difference is that on a fixed exchange rate, the force of supply and demand need to be contracted by the government. By using foreign exchange reserve to maintain the value of your currency. When India shifted the Indian rupee to a floating exchange rate in the 1990s, one of the reasons it was that India's foreign exchange reserves were so low that they could support only 3 weeks' imports. This is the benefit of the floating exchange rate. If the unemployment in the country is rising, the economic is in a bad state, then the center government can control the supply of money by increasing the supply or reducing the interest rate, or by devaluing the currency. To revive growth, these are not possible in the fixed exchange rate. I have listed out of so many disadvantages of the fixed exchange rate system. Why do the Gulf countries still use the system even today? The simple reason for it is that the economic of these countries are based on oil. And, like all of us know, the price of oil is very volatile. It fluctuates rapidly. If these countries start using the floating exchange rate, then with the demand and supply of oil, the currency of these countries will keep on fluctuating rapidly. Their value will change every moment. To avoid this, they still use the fixed exchange rate system. And Kuwait does not lack foreign exchange reserves, because this country has earned a lot of money by selling oil, and there have a lot of US dollar in reserve. They would not struggle to maintain the peg. Kuwait has one of the largest global reserve of oil, and on the basis of this oil industry, Kuwait can maintain its high-value peg. Speaking theoretically, why does not Kuwait keep its currency on a much more fixed exchange rate. Today rupees 250 equal to 1 KD. Why does not Kuwait say that rupees 1000 should be equal to 1 KD? That they want to fix the exchange rate of their currency at that high level. Theoretically speaking, Kuwait can do this, but then it will be difficult to maintain that peg, because that much foreign reserve would be needed to maintain it. Today the force of the supply and demand in the market. For example, a major factor here is the balance of payment. The money that is coming in Kuwait, through foreign investment or export, is much more than the money going out of Kuwait, through imports or investment of the locals in the foreign countries. It means that foreigners are buying some more goods and services from Kuwait, and are investing there, so the demand for the currency is high. Thank you so much for watching this video.